I'm an idiot because it's an ongoing cycle. And I'm not saying this to complain. I just think a lot of people have this problem, and part of the solution for me is letting myself feel like shit. That's part of my process. Most of my art projects are either inspired by anxiety and negative emotions, or they're like a release valve from anxiety. One day, I was walking around New York City, feeling really frustrated and angry with myself for procrastinating on yet another project, and I started saying to myself, oh, oops. Do it, come on. Just fucking goddamn do it, be done with it already. I'm sorry for swearing, but that's what I really said. And I thought, that's so messed up that I can't say that without immediately thinking of Nike. Like, they've claimed this super useful phrase, and they've robbed me of that space in my brain forever. I'm a hypocrite because I'm wearing Nikes right now. They're my favorite. But anyways, I started thinking about what other corporate slogans are taking up mental space without my permission, and I thought it would be fun to pretend I was like a rogue advertising agent who was pitching new slogans to corporations. Subway, eat the same. Subway, smell bread. Subway, eat a tube of food. Food option. So I would make these, and then I would tweet them at the companies. Like, I'm not normally such a troll, but I kind of think corporations deserve to be trolled. And I was in kind of a dark place, and I don't feel bad for them. I don't care. McDonald's, I like this. No, thank you. I said no, thank you. No. I love something. Is it this? I'm currently loving it. I'm tasting. I am myself. Chevrolet. I'm a big boy. KFC. Brown rainbows of food. Toyota. You need a fucking car, unfortunately. So I made a ton of these, and I just think it's funny that they came from this like super negative place where I was really beating myself up, and that's what inspired them. Extra Egg Room is a horror comic I made a few years ago about a character named He-Horse. And this idea came from an anxiety dream I had about flying. I hate flying. I try to write down my dreams because while dreams are extremely boring to describe to people and to listen to, they have this twisted logic that is interesting. And it's helpful for me to think in a dreamlike way when I'm writing a very visually surreal story that is based on very real emotions or fears, the way dreams often are. This is a comic I made called Moose Fingers. 5 years ago, I was living in New York, and I was struggling with agoraphobia. And I was feeling really creatively blocked, and I was having a lot of trouble making stuff. So I made this comic about a character named She-Moose who starts sculpting a series of clay fingers. And she gets this idea to make fingers, and she doesn't know why she's doing it or where she's going and what it's going to mean later in her life. But it's all she really feels like doing, and it fulfills this need of hers to be creative. Later, she's lying in bed with her cat boyfriend, complaining about how she feels lost and aimless in what she's doing. And she says, it's so hard to focus lately. All my ideas are stale. My sculptures are stupid. I'm just making a pile of weird fingers. And her cat boyfriend says, it doesn't matter if you feel good or bad while you make stuff. These fingers are going to come out good. So just get to work. Stop crying. Move your hands. Which is kind of blunt, but it's the kick in the ass that she needs, because it's true that having negative feelings about the work doesn't affect the actual quality or value of the work. Anyways, that was a true story. I made all those fingers. I'm the moose. My boyfriend is the cat. He said those things to me, and it helped me have that epiphany. Doesn't matter if you feel bad while you're working. I feel healthiest when I take breaks from drawing to make 3D objects, even if they're really ugly and creepy and they don't serve any purpose. I'm not selling these, nobody wants them. But just the act of making them is serving an emotional or creative purpose. So, I briefly mentioned agoraphobia earlier. I only picked this picture because it's outdoors. I've had this to some degree since childhood, and it's embarrassing, but it's just very easy for me to come up with reasons to not go outside. I might get in a car accident, or I might have a panic attack, or I might get sick, or I'm afraid I'll explode and all my insides will come out. This fear and anxiety gets worse the longer I go without challenging myself to do scary things. So when Lucky Peach, a quarterly food magazine, asked me to write and illustrate a regular column for them, I used it as a motivation for going outside and doing stuff in the world. For this one, I took a trip to Las Vegas to write about all-you-can-eat buffets. For this one, I hung out with Wiley Dufresne, a chef, for a day, and it was super intimidating. But if it's my job to go out and report on something and talk to a person, it makes it easier. I wrote this piece about swimming with baby otters. Sometimes I just use these assignments as an excuse to go out and have an animal encounter. And now every day I'm not covered in otters. It's a piece of shit. Doing these pieces allow me to be a braver version of myself. The journalist version of Lisa is not as timid about talking to strangers and visiting new places. This is a picture of me and my friend Emily Heller, a very pretty picture. She's this incredibly funny comedian who I met a couple years ago in New York. And after we first started hanging out, she said, "Hey, do you want to co-host a podcast with me?" And I said, "Yeah, okay," because I didn't think it would actually happen. I didn't know her that well. I didn't know that Emily is really good at accomplishing things, making things happen. And she's not as hesitant or shy as I am. So we started the Baby Geniuses podcast. I came up with a terrible name. We started 3 years ago, and we just recorded our 100th episode. Yeah, thank you. It's super challenging for me to feel comfortable meeting new people and interviewing them and making jokes out loud into a mic, but those things are never going to be my forte. But doing the podcast with Emily has really helped me feel more confident, and it's super fun. A few years ago, I started making illustrated movie reviews, and Warhorse was my most popular piece, and I think the thing that really made it special is I'm completely obsessed with horses. Mom, is it legal for people to marry horses? When I was a kid, I used to crawl around pretending I was a horse, and I got made fun of it for a lot, of course, and it became a source of shame as I got older. And other people found my obsession off-putting, and I can't blame them. This is a class assignment from the 6th grade where we had to write about ourselves. I'll just read it really quick. Start off, I'll make it clear that I really like horses. I really like horses. I really, really like them. Everybody that knows me says it's more than an obsession. They're probably right. People make fun of me and they call me horse poop and lady horse. I just take it as a compliment because I figure they must like horse poop a lot because they say it whenever I walk past. I'm also wild about art. I want to be famous for drawing horses someday. Yeah. So that's never really gone away. That's like the core of my being. And this movie review was the first time I really came out as being a horse girl in my adult years, and it really resonated with people. Every character in the movie is like enchanted by the horse, and that's exactly how I feel every day in real life. I don't know what it is about them. When I was in college, I made these like enormous clay horse heads for a sculpture class, and during our critique, my professor got really worked up over how strange and enigmatic horses are. And at one point, she kept loudly repeating, "What is it about their faces? What is it about the face?" And we just stared back at her like, So I loved Warhorse. I cry every time I watch it. It taps into my childhood obsession. I wish I didn't like horses because they're really dangerous and unpredictable, but I can't help it. A few years ago, I started making this Western adventure comic called Coyote Dog Girl, and I love Westerns so much, but they're often really racist and misogynist, and most of them don't even acknowledge the horses. Like we don't even learn their names half the time. That pisses me off. So I made a Western where horses were the focus. When I originally sketched the story out, Coyote was a man. I'm used to seeing male protagonists in stories like this, so it takes an extra step for me to visualize it as a female. And I realized I had zero reason to not make her a girl. I was just being lazy, so I gave her a sports bra. I made her female. A lot of the stories I write come from me feeling frustrated that kind of story doesn't already exist. I wanted a surreal, horse-focused Western with dog people in it. I couldn't find an example of that, so I made it. In 2010, my high school friend Raphael emailed me about his idea for a TV show called BoJack, the Depressed Talking Horse. I said, that sounds really sad and cynical. I don't know if I like it. He was like, okay. But then a year later, he pitched BoJack to Tornante, a development company out in LA, and he included my drawings with his pitch. A year after that, I was hired to create concept art of the main characters. At this point, I had zero animation experience, and I didn't know how to draw on a computer, so I was just doing watercolors by hand. And I started this project with a ton of hesitation. I was super cautious about getting involved because I didn't know what it would entail, and I didn't feel confident about what I was doing, and I was super commitment phobic about working on such a large project, and I was just like leaning out all the way. And we went through several rounds with the main characters and refined the look for all of them, and there were tons of notes, and it was super difficult, and tons of conference calls, and I was like, oh, well, that was interesting. I'll never, ever work on this again. Then a year later, Tornante decided to animate a 10-minute pilot, and they convinced me to art direct it. Again, I was like, no, well, fine, okay. Here's an example of me just like making notes on how to make this office more cat-friendly, because it's for a cat person. So I was creating character designs and adding background details, and this is like a color guide I made for a background. Animated TV pilots make a really long time to make, but in some ways it was a blessing because we had time to really flesh out the details of the show. There were so many little decisions that needed to be made, and questions came up like, why don't the animals have tails? And can cats be pink in this world? And is that a dye job or what? I hope to carry that secret with me to the grave. Almost a year after we created the pilot, Netflix bought BoJack, and I moved to LA to work full-time as a production designer. This was my first job where I was working with other people, and it was fucking terrifying. There are tons of people all working together to make this thing, and I was thrown in there, and I had to stand up in front of them and say, so I'm not an animator, I've never done this before, but here's how I want you to draw clouds, and at night they're gonna be purple, and there's all these talented animators who've been doing this for years, and all I had to go on is my own style of drawing and my own taste for what makes things funny or beautiful or interesting. We're currently in production on season 3. Yay! And I've really grown to love working as part of a team. It can be frustrating to coordinate so many different people with so many different points of view, but it's actually rewarding to collaborate when the other people are really talented. It makes my work better. And I'm slowly getting more confident that my decisions aren't stupid and I'm not a fraud, and there's a reason I'm trusted to do this. Part of what I love about working on the show is that it seems like a wacky sitcom at first, but it's actually written from a really personal and emotional place. And my goal is for people to be able to pause it at any